right, so my name is Josh Ince. I'm with the Health and Temperance Department at our church. I advocate for it. I've gone through and helped facilitate the Complete Health Improvement Program at our church as well. So I have my own little journey of how I got to a point of even being minorly concerned about health. I was raised a vegetarian, but to be frank, you can, be a vegetarian and eat poorly, right? I didn't eat meat or dairy products, but, well, I shouldn't say not that. I didn't eat primarily, right, not meat products, but, I went through the drive-thrus like everybody else, right, and ate, you can stop by your convenience store and pick up anything and still be vegetarian. So that's not necessarily an indication of health. So enjoyed my food for a long period of time. No issues. My work was somewhat stressful, or maybe I took too stressful time with it as I got older. And I just wolfed down my food when it came time for lunch or whatever the meal was. I didn't really take time with it or consider what I was eating. To be frank, it seemed as if it was more of a inconvenience than something that I was enjoying. It just got in the way of whatever I was doing. So I just crammed whatever down my throat and kept on going. Hit the local drive-thru and just, ate whatever I liked. Kept on going. So a combination of stress and possibly poor diet led to some digestion issues that at the time I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that it was a little bit harder for me to be able to eat my food, harder for me to be able to consume it, and the stress at work was continuing to mount up. I had a lot of different weird symptoms. I would get up at night gasping for air. I wasn't able to swallow my food properly anymore, and I just went back and forth on, believe it or not, on these types of issues for years. I went to doctors, and because nothing was very obviously wrong with me when I went to the doctor's office, I got told that nothing was wrong. And I started to think it was all in my head. But as it kept on happening and kept on getting worse, these various symptoms, I kept on telling myself, I was like, this isn't in my head. I feel like I'm close to death. I'm getting up gasping for air at night. I try to swallow my food. It gets stuck in my throat. It doesn't go down. I'm choking on it. Without sounding gross, I'm having to regurgitate the food because it's not going down. It was a terrible, terrible experience for many, many years. I suffered very heavily with it. Eventually, I was out of town at work, and I went to somebody actually recommended a certain type of doctor for me. Some kind of like a gastroenterologist. Well, let me tell you the story actually that happened before that, which is a little bit more significant. Had one of those days where I was working, really giving it everything that I had, went to a local Burger King or whatever it was, shoved the food down my throat, was barely getting to swallow the food properly. I think I abandoned most of the meal, was frustrated. That was one of the first times when I started to come to the conclusion of how important eating is. It feels like a psychological right to be able to consume your food. And here I was not able to. I was very angry. I was very frustrated. And so that night, I was on my way home, to the hotel. I was out of town. And I had gotten a lot of bad situations with not being able to, swallow my food properly, having to do partial regurgitation because of the reflux in my stomach and issues in my throat that I was unaware of. So I went to a restaurant. It was, I think, like an Italian restaurant. It was pasta. It was probably the most difficult food for me to eat because after I chewed things like pasta and bread, it would just turn into this glob that would get stuck in my throat, and I'd literally be choking. I had one option: try to swallow it or try and spit it back out, and it didn't always work out well. But I went to this restaurant because I was angry. I went to this restaurant because I was angry because I couldn't consume food, and I was very frustrated. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to eat this meal. Well, you probably can guess what happened. I got done trying to eat the meal, and I got back in my car, and I was like, okay, you did it. You really did it this time. You're in trouble. You can't swallow it. You can't throw it up, and you're starting to get short on air, and things aren't working out. And so I got back to the hotel and was in the parking lot. And still to this day, it's so many years past, I sometimes talk about it with my wife. It's very hard for me to tell this part of the story, and I'll explain why. I parked the car because I was choking, and I got out of the car, and I realized that was it. This was my time to go. I didn't have the ability to really talk, to be able to get on a phone call and do any kind of 911s. I was alone in a parking lot. And the first thing I thought was, this sounds strange, but I was like, what an undignified way to die. I spent my whole life and I'm just going to die alone in a parking lot. And, when people say your life flashes before your eyes, it sure did. I saw my wife, I saw my daughters, and I figured this was it. I couldn't do anything that you would normally want to do. Couldn't talk, was choking, couldn't breathe, and time was slipping away from me. And I said a prayer. I said, God, if you let me live, I'll testify. I'll serve you. I'll testify. I'll give my best. And right after that prayer, the food that I was choking on, it came out. I'm not trying to be graphic, but I was able to throw it up, which is what I was trying to do, either that or swallow it. And it came out, and I gasped for air. And then I, eventually got to the point of calling my wife and telling her, talk to my boss, and they were like, wow, this is crazy, what's going on? They flew my wife to come see me and be with me. And I spent the next couple of weeks in a hotel room drinking Ensure. It was the only thing I could get in. It was a very, very stressful, difficult time. Eventually got around to getting to that doctor. This doctor took a video camera, kind of like in a tube, stuck it down my throat. Don't know why no one had ever done this for me before. And he found a growth that was in my throat that was covering 3/4 of my airway. And that was why I was, getting up, choking at night. It probably obviously contributed to the situation with the food. So they said, look, you got to get some surgery right away. And I said, look, I want to go home. I want to go home and have that surgery. I don't want to be all the way over here, just me and my wife. Let me go home. So they referred me back to somebody in Houston. I came to Houston. We got that surgery done. I thought I was home and off into the clear. Didn't forget my little, I shouldn't say little. I didn't forget my promise to God. Started trying to chronologue my journey, I guess you could say, that led me up into that point. And then I was still having problems. I couldn't understand. I was like, okay, you took out the part that you said was bad. Why am I still not able to eat my food? It's a very personal thing when you come time for a meal and you can't do it. And what if you're hungry, right? And you want to be able to eat and you can't even do that. It's very, very tough mentally. Went back to the doctor, said, hey, I'm still having problems. Drinking shakes and stuff like that because I can't even bring down solid food. They did another surgery because my tonsils were starting to swell up. They said, okay, we got to remove your tonsils. They're just way too big. They're enlarged. You have barely even a gap for your food to go down. So they did that. And in the middle of the surgery of them removing my tonsils, my uvula, that little thing that you see that looks like a little punching bag in the back of your throat, that swelled up in the middle of the surgery and almost killed me. So they had to cut off that as well too. So if you ever see me in person and you want to see something weird, there's a big hole back there. And we got through that. And then I had to deal with my reflux issues throughout the years, right? And still to this day, I still have to manage it. So I kind of had to learn to what do I eat now? How do I eat? I need to get healthier. I need to do things in a way that I can live normally again. So I tried to find things that I thought were healthier that would be helpful rather than, still running over to the drive-through and just doing whatever I thought I should eat. I prayed about it. I studied. And it was a long, long journey. So I went from drinking a bunch of shakes and eating soft foods to trying to eat salads. And I ate like salads all the time, off and on for a year. It was my everyday lunch. I was able to do it. My body started to normalize on it, and I started to learn. My head started to get a lot clearer because I'm consuming all these greens. I didn't know that's what it was. I did more studies, and I felt like I could think better. I felt like even when I had my Bible study, it's like the same scriptures I read, they seemed to make more sense. Things got a lot clearer. And so I started to research, and I was like, okay, I'm doing this, and it's having some type of result. Let me do some more research. Prayed, did research, and started to find out the important role that food has on your body, how it affects your mind, how it affects your body, and the different things that it can actually do for you. And then started seeing it from our health message perspective, and how it plays into the bigger part of our bodies are a temple, and how we're supposed to utilize this frame that we've been given to be able to do ministry. And I was thinking, wow, I remember my promise, that I made to God. And I thought about the church, and I said to myself, this is my family. These people, some of these people in the congregation, I've known for 30 plus years. People in the congregation know me since I was 14 years old. I don't want to tell you how old I am now, but I'm not 14 anymore. And I said, I got to share some of this stuff that I'm learning. I can't keep it to myself. What if it could be a help to somebody else? So it started to turn into fulfillment of a promise that I made to God to testify about what he taught me. He saved my life. He brought me back literally from the brink of death. I owed him. I still do. And I will until he comes. Sorry. It's something that I'm very passionate about, because it comes from a very, very, very deep place. And God gave me a chance. He gave me a chance to live life again. He gave me a chance to see my family. And I feel like I owe him. I feel like I owe him for what he did for me. And he's given me all this knowledge to not have me shut up in a corner and just be some healthy guy that's arrogant and feeling great about himself and looking in the mirror. It's not why he allowed me to live. It's not why he gave me this information. It's not why he let me walk this journey. He gave it to me to share it. He gave it to me to be able to connect that food that just looks like a piece of broccoli to God provided these nutrients so that we could live and be a living witness and testify for him and bring people to knowledge of the truth, greater truths that they may not have seen. So the answer to the prayer and the promise turned into a calling, and it turned into a ministry. And I'm thankful to God that I had the opportunity to be able to share throughout the years what he did to give me my life back and hopefully give other people their lives back. We're all called. We all have a story. We all have a testimony. We all have something that God brought us through. I think we should witness. I think we should share it. I think we should utilize it to improve other people's lives, not be selfish with what God has done, be a faithful witness, and testify to God's goodness. And so that's what I try to do. So when I get opportunities to come out here and talk, and Jason and others say, hey, can you come on out? Hey, look, I may be tired in the day. I made a promise. I'm living because God gave me that chance. I owe it to him to come out here and do the best I can. Not just in this aspect, but every other aspect that he's called me in. So I try. Sometimes I fail, but I try. And I ask God for strength so that I can go on and be that witness. So at a high level, in a general sense, that's my story. So health will always have a personal place for me. I'm not a guy that's talking about it and going home and eating a piece of cake. It doesn't work that way because the cake's going to hurt me, and I've been given a chance to live again, and I'm not going to waste it now that I know better. So that's the story. So hopefully it's a benefit to you, and hopefully I can continue to perform in this ministry and any other ministry God calls me, because he gave me that second chance.
Thank you for joining our program today. What part benefited you the most? Comment below and let us know. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you are in the Houston area and you are looking to join the conversation in person, Come check us out on the web at houstoncentralsda.org. See you next time.